Laura, a situation that had been simmering came to a head this afternoon when All-Pro edge rusher Micah Parsons announced that he personally had requested a trade from Stephen Jones and the Dallas Cowboys. He wants to be done with Dallas right now, and he laid out factually in his mind a slew of factors as to why he no longer wants to be with the team that he and his father grew up rooting for. And at its root, essentially, is a failed contract negotiation in which he feels like the Dallas Cowboys got him in a room to talk about leadership, wound up in a negotiation. The Cowboys felt like they had a deal. Micah Parsons did not. He had his agent call there. His agent obviously said there's no deal, and there's been no contact in recent months about a contract at a time where we've seen Max Crosby get paid. We've seen Myles Garrett get paid. We've seen TJ Watt get paid, and we have not seen Micah Parsons get paid. Not only have we not seen him get paid, we haven't seen or heard about any conversations between the two sides. And we've said this all week long, but essentially the sides right now have been further apart today in early August than they were in early April. And now it's culminated in Micah Parsons issuing a trade request. It's gone viral. He's got teammates on Twitter supporting him, and there's more drama in Dallas.
Adam, I feel like this is crazy to even ask, but I'm going to ask you. Would the Cowboys actually trade Micah Parsons?
Laura, I've been trying to think of the last time that Jerry Jones traded a Pro Bowl caliber player away, and I cannot think of any. Now, there are comps out there. If you look at the time that the Raiders traded Khalil Mack to the Bears right before the season began in September for a couple of first-round picks and other compensation, that would be the closest comp. But Jerry Jones wants to win now. He's not looking to win in the future. He's not looking for future draft picks, and his history suggests that he won't be willing to make a trade here. Now, again, we have yet to hear from the Dallas Cowboys on how they feel about this particular situation. But we've now seen all three disgruntled contractual players, Micah Parsons, Terry McLaurin, and Trey Hendrickson, request a trade at some point either this offseason or this summer. And it's one thing to actually make the request. It's another to see it come to fruition. Could it happen? Yes. Everybody of every other team would love to acquire any one of these players. But for it to actually happen takes an awful lot because you've got to satisfy the player with his contract and the team that is trading him away.
All right, Adam, thanks so much for all of the context here. Just incredible out of you. We appreciate you. You referenced that statement. It was lengthy, 592 words to be exact, posted on Twitter. Parsons said in part, yes, I wanted to be here. I did everything I could to show that I wanted to be a Cowboy and wear the star on my helmet. You sense the past tense there. Unfortunately, I no longer want to be here. I no longer want to be held to closed-door negotiations without my agent present. I no longer want shots taken at me for getting injured while laying it on the line for the organization, our fans, and my teammates. I had purposely stayed quiet in hopes of getting something done. Up to today, the team has not had a single conversation with my agent about a contract. Not one demand has been made by my agent about money, years, or anything else. Still, I stayed quiet, but again, after repeated shots at myself and all the narratives I have made a tough decision, I no longer want to play for the Dallas Cowboys. My trade request has been submitted to Stephen Jones personally. Oh my, Marcus Spears demanded to be on the show today. Some airtime after seeing that Micah post. Swagoo, you've done business in Dallas. What do you make of all this?
So initially, Boogie, I had the emotional reaction because y'all know how I am when it comes to the Cowboys, and I start thinking about like through history. And here recently, we had Myles Garrett do the same thing. So once I got calm and I stopped cussing everybody out in the facility of the Dallas Cowboys, I started thinking about, all right, so this is a negotiation tactic. That's the first thing that came to my mind, and it kind of settled me on the isolated Micah Parsons and Dallas Cowboys in this route right now, where we've seen this happen, not only with Dak Prescott, not only with CeeDee Lamb, but as I read his soliloquy, and as I focused on one part of those, that I excerpted one part out of that, I tried to negotiate, and it didn't matter, and I was not waiting for all of the other guys to get their money. This in lies the problem. It's a two-part thing for me. One, 2 months ago, I was in the airport headed to a basketball tournament with my son. Dude walks up and says, man, how you think we gonna be this year? It's Cowboy fans everywhere. I said, you know what? I feel good about it because it's quiet. I was like, it's not a lot going on. Usually those type of off seasons lead to Dallas having a formidable season and potentially making a playoff run. I was optimistic about what the Cowboys potentially could be this year, which if Micah gets signed, I'm back to optimism as far as on the field. But the thing is this, and this is what I've been saying, and Boogie, you and I have been doing this forever, and we're about to start another football season. People have to understand how much this affects a football team that is trying to focus on winning. We have these conversations every damn year about the Cowboys. It's always some sort of noise that does not play into actually winning football games. So as opposed to me going crazy and losing my ish on TV, with the contract negotiation, I'm not going to lose my mind. Shefty has been doing this longer than anybody. He's the best in the business. He usually has a feel for these things. I circle back to what I said. Myles Garrett requested a trade. I thought that was going to be it in Cleveland. He ends up signing a whopping $40+ million a year salary deal. Hopefully, that is what Micah and his agent, David Mulligetta, is doing. But Lord have mercy, do we have a problem if he's serious? Do we have a problem if you can't get this back to where he is actually wearing that uniform? He's the best player on the team, on a team that is absolutely going to need him with a brand new head coach. But here's the other issue I have. Why can't we ever just have a normal offseason with training camp, get ready for the season, go into the season and play football games? And I don't want to hear it. Everybody here always tries to tell me, Swag, calm down. It's going to get fixed. Don't worry about the contract. This stuff affects the winning. It affects the team and how they actually play football. So I don't want to hear it this year. I've watched them implode. I've watched us lose playoff games. And then we get to the offseason, and guess what we do, Boogie? What's the definition of a damn fool? Doing something over and over again and thinking something is going to change. So here we are again, like last year with CeeDee Lamb, like the year previously with Dak Prescott. Here we are again with the marquee star on the defensive side of the football, and it's going to lead to us having a conversation sometime in November and December about why the hell the Dallas Cowboys not a contender to get into the playoffs.
Okay, so you started out where you weren't losing it,
so long.
but then you did lose it, which is really what I was waiting for. And I knew we'd get you there, Swagoo. I knew it somehow, some way. Okay, we're going to bring Courtney Cronin and Kevin Clark in here because I want to get y'all's thought on this as well. But first, I do want to show you some of what you heard Adam referencing as well as Marcus referencing there. How about this from CeeDee Lamb? Never fails, dog. Just pay the man what you owe him. No need for the extracurricular. My goodness, you see the teammates posting on X there. Their new profile pictures are Micah Parsons. They're even doing that thing you can do where you said new profile picture so everybody sees it, right? This is wild. I want to go first to Courtney here on just maybe the distraction side of all of this. I mean, we know the Cowboys are going to have a certain level of distraction every single season, but as Marcus alluded to, they're trying to get ready under a new head coach. How do you think this affects everything going on with the team?
New head coach and new defensive coordinator.
Good point.
So more on that in a minute, but I need somebody to go to the Cowboys facility and remove every copy of 48 Laws of Power that are in every front office because this is not the way you conduct business. And I know that there is something to be said about Jerry Jones being the GM and owner, and he did it for so long. It's worked because eventually these deals get done. With players in this day and age, in an era of player empowerment, you're seeing it so much more in professional sports, particularly in the NFL. You can't do business this way anymore. It's a bad method, and it creates bad blood within the locker room, within the team. We saw this as CeeDee Lamb with Dak Prescott. And the statement that Micah Parsons put out, that got really personal. He was talking about Jerry Jones calling him out for his injuries and talking about, well, why would I want a player pay a player that's been injured in the certain instances in which he has. He talks about going into Jerry's office to talk about leadership, and all of a sudden a leadership conversation turns into something about negotiations where his agent isn't even present. He's made comments about his agent, David Mulugeta, acting like he has no clue who one of the most powerful agents in sports is. These are all pot shots that could have absolutely been avoided. And Jerry has talked about doing business right. And, you know, I don't mind costing myself more money just as long as we get the deal done. I can remember a time last December, Laura, where Micah Parsons told Todd Archer that there's not much of a difference between $30 and $40 million. They could have done this months ago, right, and smoothed all of this over to the point where you get sports and you get business. You have it's not an issue anymore. But now they've created something. Toothpaste is out of the tube. And I don't know how you end up remedying this unless you're going to give him the $43 million bag, which they clearly don't want to do right now.
Yeah, and it just doesn't feel like after a statement like this, to your point, some of the personal shots that have been taken on both sides here, that this is easily rehabbed. The other thing about this, Kevin, and Courtney's alluding to this, okay, you draft really well. You develop this player. He was already uber talented. Pay him early. Get it done. Why does this happen with the Cowboys?
Why does this happen with the Cowboys? That is a great question, Laura. When I think about the Eagles in that division, they have the best roster in football right now. Howie Roseman said it a couple weeks ago. They do three things. They draft, they develop, they sign. They do all of those things as quickly as they can, and that's the reason they're able to maximize their roster. That's the reason that they have 4 guys who are being paid as top-tier players who are making as much as the top 2 players on the Cowboys, because the Cowboys do not maximize their salary cap. Okay, that is the way Jerry Jones does business. And people say, oh, he's always done this. You know, that's worse, right? That makes it worse. And people say, okay, well, there's an element of professional wrestling. Well, sometimes professional wrestlers get hurt, and that's what happens in these sort of scenarios. Is you get into a situation where you think we're playing the game, we're just trying to generate headlines. Well, guess who's not trying to play the game? Micah Parsons. He's trying to get paid. He is the type of player where if you lose him, you are looking to replace him for a decade or longer. 25% of the team's pressures last year were from Micah Parsons. By the way, he missed 4 games. That should not be happening. He is their defense. They have to improve in that regard, and they have to have him on the field. This is embarrassing. Every summer we go through something like this. Jerry Jones, I know this sounds crazy, but you got to change a little bit, buddy.
Yeah, Marcus, you know Jerry. I mean, does Jerry like doing this? I know he likes the attention maybe, but this to me is so mind-boggling that you wouldn't just find a way to pay your best player on the team. What do you think just from the personal side of it, right? Because I think that's a big factor here.
Boogie, therein lies the problem. I'm sick of saying it. This is Jerry. This is what he does. This is who he is. We get on this damn TV and we make excuses for dumb decision making, and we've been doing it year after year after year. I'm done with it. I don't need nobody to tell me to calm down. Micah gonna get paid. Don't worry about it. He gonna build it up all the way into the offseason. The problem is there are ramifications for that. It's not just about Micah getting paid. It's team chemistry. It's camaraderie. It's a locker room with their guy. One of the mantelpieces of what this football team is going to have success with if they get him in the locker room. And I'm going to tell you this. I feel like this, man. And as much as it hurts me to say this, because I don't want to see Micah in another uniform, somebody got to stand on business. One of these players got to stand on business and finally say, nah, I ain't going to conduct business this way. You're not doing right by me. Like these other franchises that we looking at paying these guys and getting negotiations done and deals done. And one thing I want to reiterate before we leave, in that what Michael wrote, he called Jerry Jones a snake. I don't know if anybody interpreted it that way, but he said we had a meeting and he left as if we were negotiating a deal without talking to my agent. He said, you tried to snake me. He didn't say that verbatim, but that is what I contextualized when Jerry supposedly thought that they had a negotiation done or they started to negotiate. So if Micah is dug in, kudos to you, bro. I hate to see you go. I would love for you to be a Dallas Cowboy as long as possible because you're a phenomenal player. But at some point, Jerry and Steven is going to mess with the wrong one. And they're going to stand on business for real and not show up to play games. Now, everybody, money is going to fix it, and eventually he'll break. Maybe that's the case. Maybe Micah Parsons is doing this for a negotiating tactic. But if he's not, I'm telling y'all right now, I'm in Dallas. These fans acted a fool with the Dallas Mavericks when Luka Doncic was let go because they thought that was the face of their franchise. This is an inflection point for the Dallas Cowboys, their business practices, and how they've been doing things. If this young man decide, I'm going to be that one player that don't just go with the regular rigmarole and accept the contract and go back and play with the Cowboys. I'm going to request a trade and stand on it until they make a move to move me out of the way.
Just because you pay someone's salary doesn't mean you get to treat people like commodities. And I feel like that's the lesson we have learned time and time and time again from the way the Dallas Cowboys do business. And think about what Jerry Jones just did this offseason. Brand new coaching staff. What is this doing to Brian Schottenheimer? What is this doing to Matt Eberflus? Matt Eberflus has said, Mike is a premier pass rusher. We're going to use him that way. Not going to use him if you don't have him this year. And it's only fracturing what could have been and what should be a training camp where you're focused on moving past injuries, moving past a 7-10 season from a year ago. Why do you try to muddy the waters with more drama when it could have been prevented?
It makes it so difficult for everyone. And yeah, you're right. These players are not putting up with being treated this way. All right, Adam, final word. Where does this go next? What's your prediction?
Well, let me just say that, again, we've seen the Cowboys do this, Laura. They did it with the face of their franchise, the quarterback, Dak Prescott. They franchise tagged him twice. He was the Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee and winner. They made him wait. So if they do it for the quarterback, of course, they could do it for the great young defensive player. But right now, we've got a number of outstanding trade requests. And as tantalizing as it is for everybody to talk about, this has been what Jerry Jones has enjoyed in previous off seasons. He doesn't mind waiting. He doesn't mind the drama. He doesn't mind the headlines. He doesn't mind that ultimately it costs him more money in the end. Ultimately, in the end, he gets it done. And Big Swaggo, you brought up Myles Garrett. Could anybody have taken a stronger stand against his franchise only to have it flip a couple of months later to sign a deal that made him the highest paid non-quarterback in football? Do you think Jerry Jones is going to want to trade Micah Parsons? No. I've got teams across the league, fans from them texting me, are we going to get Micah Parsons? Are we going to get... Jerry Jones, I would think, is not open to trading Micah Parsons right now. That doesn't mean that later this summer he couldn't revisit it, but I would imagine Jerry Jones still wants to try to win a Super Bowl. Micah Parsons is going to give him the best chance to win a Super Bowl. And we've seen any number of players come out, take strong stands against their franchises, from Deebo Samuel to T. Higgins to Brandon Ayuk to Myles Garrett. And not to say that a trade can't get done, but usually, more often than not, it doesn't.
Oh, okay. Quick, Marcus.
Boogie.
Yeah?
Boogie, Shefty, you're absolutely right. But guess what, Shefty? Go back to 2024, you was on here saying the same thing. Go back to 2023, you was on here saying the same thing. And the point is that it affects the team. That's all I want people to understand.
Well, yes,
yeah, you get paid, you get your money. This is what Jerry does. It affects the team when they play football. And that is the frustration with these fans.
Well, I'm not going to argue that. I mean, it's been in the results. We've seen what Dallas has done the last couple of seasons, right?
Right, and that's not what Cowboys fans, and I would assume Jerry Jones wants to see happen anyway. All right, we're going to be on this all show long.
I just wish Swagoo felt passionately about this.
I know. Well, he wasn't going to lose it, but then he did, and we're really glad that he did. We're just getting started on NFL Live. I know, it does. It makes us all sick. Micah Parsons, as Adam was just referencing, not the only player in the NFC East that's requested a trade in the past 24 hours. Terry McLaurin, another. We will talk about that. Will the Commanders actually trade McLaurin? That deal might be a little more complicated than you think. Plus, we watched the Chiefs' offensive line get exposed in Super Bowl 59. Have they done enough this offseason to get that unit back on track? We discussed the Chiefs and a live report coming your way. NFL Live is brought to you by ESPN Fantasy Football, the #1 fantasy game. Download the ESPN Fantasy app to play today. More NFL Live right after this. Lots of news today. Don't go anywhere. Hey, we got to see some football last night, the Hall of Fame game, and tomorrow, once again, we have the Pro Football Hall of Fame enshrinement ceremony for you on ESPN and the ESPN app. This year's class includes Eric Allen, Jared Allen, Antonio Gates, and Sterling Sharp. Always a great afternoon. Coverage begins at 1 Eastern. Don't miss that. Let's talk a little Kansas City Chiefs. Some changes along the offensive line for the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes will have a new left tackle in Josh Simmons. The Chiefs' first-round pick this year out of Ohio State, incredibly talented. Maybe the injury is what allowed him to not be drafted earlier, but he seems healthy. Former tackle Kingsley Suamatea will move over to left guard, and the other three positions remain unchanged for last year, but should be improved, right? So we welcome in our Chiefs reporter, Nate Taylor. Nate, what sticks out to you about the Chiefs' revamped offensive line so far throughout camp?
Well, what sticks out to me right now, Laura, is that the Chiefs have an optimum situation as we are taking this right now, about 2 weeks through training camp. Now, Joshua Simmons, the talented rookie from Ohio State, was projected to be maybe the top offensive tackle to be taken in the draft had he not been injured. Well, he's rehabbed every single day since the moment the Chiefs took him with the 32nd pick. And I even asked him today in his first interview with reporters at training camp, how often are you rehabbing? And it's days off. It's maybe even twice a day. The Chiefs have loved what he has shown so far in terms of his durability, his strength, and even on the hottest day of training camp on Tuesday, we're talking over 100 degrees. Josh Simmons performed very well against veteran pass rushers such as George Karlaftis, Mike Dana, and Charles Omenihu. So for right now, Josh Simmons is the projected starter at left tackle. He will be the new blindside protector for Patrick Mahomes, with Kingsley Suamatea to be on track to be the left guard. And even though they signed Jalen Moore in the offseason in free agency, he will now look to be the first backup in case something goes wrong with the offensive line. But the Chiefs love what they see from Josh Simmons so far, and Patrick Mahomes could have more protection than he had at any point last year from that left tackle position.
Yeah, I know people are like, left tackle, it's such an important position. Do you really want a rookie there? Josh Simmons really is the real deal. So I love the context that you gave there. Thanks so much for joining us. All right, we welcome Bill Barnwell into our group with Courtney and Kevin here. Bill, I'm going to go to you first. Do you think the Chiefs made the right moves to fix their O-line?
It's risky, right? I mean, they had to make a change. Left tackle was a mess for them last year with Suamatea and Wanya Morris struggling. But I can't think of a less experienced blind side of your offensive line protecting a Hall of Famer in a year where a team's trying to compete for a Super Bowl. It's not just Josh Simmons at left tackle, and I agree with you, Laura. That's a very talented player, a really promising rookie. But move to left guard. Kingsley Suamatea has one career start at left guard. He didn't play left guard in college. He did not play left guard last year until the very end of the season. Jalen Moore, who they brought in, who Nate said is going to be their kind of utility player, well, he's never played in the NFL start of the game at left guard. So you're looking at a left side of the line where maybe, ideally, they've combined for one career NFL start at their respective positions. I'm not saying it's not going to work because I trust Andy Reid, I trust Andy Heck, I trust the Chiefs' offensive staff. But gosh, it is risky when you have a Hall of Famer in the prime of his career where any year you don't win the Super Bowl is a disappointment.
Yeah, I worry about, there's so much shuffling on the left side of the offensive line. They tried Suamatea at left tackle. That didn't work out, so they're trying to have him replace Joe Thuney, who was a huge part of the interior of this offensive line last few years. It's Joe Thuney, Creed Humphrey, and Trey Smith. 85% of the team's offensive plays over the last 4 years, those three have been intact. It's a problem when you take away your perennial all-pro left guard and move him to another team in Chicago. But I think with Josh Simmons, we saw how bad that left tackle spot was, what a weak spot it was throughout last season and certainly in the Super Bowl. No pressures in 153 pass block snaps for Simmons last year. That's why he rose to the level of being a first-round pick. Yes, there is injury concern, but when you think about what Patrick Mahomes needs at this stage of his career, there's not much that he cannot do. But to not fix the weakest link on this offense, that he can make hay with just about anything. He can dink and dunk his way to a championship. It's the protection up front that I think they absolutely had to address. They made the right moves in doing it, but I still have questions about how that left side's going to shake out.
Chiefs fans, cover your ears for a second. Last year, Patrick Mahomes was contacted or hit. Contact is a technical term, 158 times, top 5 in the league. That number has increased every single season since 2019, double what it was almost in 2019. That is astounding, and it can't happen with a guy who's on a $500 million contract and is the franchise, basically, okay? He's the CEO. He's the governor of Missouri, all right? And so I'm looking at this and I'm saying the number one thing that Patrick Mahomes needs to do to get back to being the best quarterback in football by a wide margin, because the margin is getting slimmer every single year, is the deep ball, the thing he had 3-4 years ago that was absolutely magical to watch. That requires A, an incredible offensive line, and B, holding on to the ball for longer. He used to be the best quarterback in football when holding on to the ball for 2.5 seconds. Now he's somewhere in the 20s, depending on the metric you go for. Josh Simmons getting in there, being healthy. The league thinks he's a steal as long as he is healthy and can play in week 1. It seems like it's trending towards health. As long as that happens, everybody's back in position. Mahomes can be Mahomes again.
It's interesting buying him a little bit more time that you're mentioning there. You know, if you think about it, he's been running for his life, right? He was sacked 6 times in last year's Super Bowl, despite not facing a single blitz in the game. He's sensing pressure that may not even be there. All right. Let's see what they end up doing. It's going to be fun to watch. Coming up, the news of the day. We're back to it. Micah Parsons wants out of Dallas. The star pass rusher has requested a trade today. Could he actually be on the move? We'll give you more details after the break, and you'll hear from even more of the players who have already weighed in supporting Micah. That's next. We're back on NFL Live. Breaking news out of Dallas. Adam Schefter, what do we know?
Well, Loris, Micah Parsons has gone public with his unhappiness with the organization, how he's been treated this offseason, and the fact that he now would like to be traded. He officially made that request today to Stephen Jones, saying that he no longer wants to be in Dallas. And in less than 24 hours, he becomes the second standout NFC East player to request a trade from his team. Of course, Micah Parsons has been looking for a new contract, and in a lengthy statement in which he spelled out a lot that has transpired this offseason, he said he met with Jerry Jones to discuss what he thought was going to be a leadership role that somehow turned into a negotiation in which the Dallas Cowboys felt like they had a deal, but when Micah Parsons had his agent call the Cowboys informed his agent they had a deal, and the agent said, there's no deal. Micah never agreed to anything in writing, never saw any proposal. And so here we are today. There's been no meaningful dialogue all offseason since that time between the two sides. Micah Parsons has heard Jerry Jones' public comments about him getting hurt. He doesn't want to be there anymore. He's officially requested a trade. And in the end, it's just more drama in Dallas.
Yeah, Adam, I want to quickly follow up on what you just brought up there about Micah detailing this interaction between Jerry Jones that then didn't result in an actual deal, wasn't involving his agent. That seems very unprecedented to me, and a little interesting that he would pull the curtain back like that. Do you see anything coming out of that part of this?
Listen, the Dallas Cowboys have a decision to make, and they have not been prone to trade Pro Bowl players before. And if you look at the Dallas Cowboys since Jerry Jones purchased them in 1989, there has been only one instance, Laura, in which they traded a player coming off a Pro Bowl season, and that was safety Thomas Everett back in April of 1994. They traded him to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for a 4th-round pick. With all due respect to Thomas Everett, who was a superb player for the Dallas Cowboys, he's not Micah Parsons, right, who's one of 2 players in NFL history to have at least 12 sacks in his first 4 seasons, the other being Reggie White. We are talking about an elite pass rusher, one of the best, if not the best, young defensive talent in the game, who's only 26 years old. Jerry Jones wants to win now, but he's got a problem with his single best player. And now it's up to the Dallas Cowboys to figure out a way out of it, in much the same way the Cleveland Browns had to grapple with Myles Garrett earlier this offseason when he issued his trade request.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that that happened, and then now you see Myles out there just at training camp with the Browns. Adam, stay right there. We're coming back to you on Terry McLaurin, but first, let's get Bill Barnwell's thoughts on this whole situation with Micah Parsons. We have not had you weigh in yet, Bill, so go ahead. What do you think? What's your instant reaction to all this?
Laura, it's not surprising that the Cowboys are waiting until the last possible second, but what makes this so frustrating, beyond the Micah Parsons trade request, is that from the Cowboys' perspective, This process of waiting until the last second to get deals done not only has not worked or saved them money, it has cost them money and cost them the ability to put that money towards other players outside the organization. Think back to the Dak Prescott negotiations, the first time he needed a new deal. They could have got that deal done for less than $40 million years earlier. Instead, they waited and gave him $40 million and a no tag clause. They could have got it done maybe for 50 on this last deal. Instead, they waited until the last second and had to pay him $60 million. They waited on CeeDee Lamb. They waited on Zeke Elliott. Those deals, if they get done earlier in the cycle, if they get done with better comparables, the Cowboys save money. If the Cowboys do a Micah Parsons deal last year, which Micah Parsons said he was willing to do when the top of the market was much less than it is now, they save $7, $8, $9 million a year. That's money you can put towards other players on your roster. And the Cowboys have not been willing to do that with no real benefit in return beyond upsetting their players and making them feel frustrated. And the part that I find so frustrating about all this, Laura, is think about the way we talk about the Cowboys. They are a banner franchise. So the team we probably talk about the most here on ESPN. The teams who trade away young superstar defenders are frankly not the highlights of the NFL. It's the Jets trading away Jamal Adams, the Jags trading away Jalen Ramsey, the Raiders trading away Khalil Mack. Some of the least successful franchises in football are the teams trading those guys away. Every other successful franchise, they are desperate for a player like Micah Parsons. They do whatever they can to make Micah Parsons happy. They do whatever they can to sign him as quickly as possible. And the Cowboys, for some inexplicable reason, think the opposite is the best way to go.
It's crazy.
First of all, Bill, we're both wearing brown jackets. Since you're at home, you're
too.
the one that has to change.
Oh, Bill.
Piggybacking off what you said, though, the Cowboys seem to be under the mistaken belief that something is going to happen which has never happened in the history of sports, which is the price of a superstar player is going to go down. You should want to run to sign an extension with someone like Micah Parsons, who, as I said, was a quarter of your entire pressures despite missing 4 games last year. It's like my friends who are trying to buy houses and they say, oh, we'll wait until the housing market goes down. Yeah, the housing market will get right to that. It'll start to balance out any second now, irrespective of the fact that it's always going up. That's the price of a pass rusher. It is so easy. That's what's frustrating. It is so easy to come to an agreement with a player like Micah Parsons. Just give him a little bit more than the top pass rusher before him. The market is set. You go out, you give him $42 million. Sure, you do that because he's worth it. The cap always goes up. There's always flexibility. We've seen time and time and time again how you're able to build a roster when you're able to sign these guys, get cost certainty, and move on. When you're playing the game with franchise tag and fifth-year options, you're spending a lot of money. The Eagles never do this stuff, and that's why the Eagles have a much better 53 than the Cowboys.
Bill used the word desperate to describe any team that would want a player like Micah Parsons. You know who's desperate for Micah Parsons? Matt Eberflus, because scheme dependent. This scheme, specific to what Matt Eberflus has run throughout the course of his career, gets pressure with its 4-down linemen. You need dudes up front. That's why it didn't work in Chicago, why Chicago was 30th in pressure percentage the last 3 years, why they were 22nd in blitz percentage. It's antiquated in a lot of respects, but they want to get pressure on the quarterback with their 4-down linemen. What happens when you take away the guy who led your team in sacks, had 22 more first pressures than any other player on the roster last year, and also is pretty good at taking the ball away? 2 forced fumbles. That's number 2 on the team right now because Eric Kendricks is no longer there. The guy right behind Micah Parsons in sacks last year was Chauncey Golston. Where is he? Not on the Dallas Cowboys this year. There are a lot of moving parts. So if I'm the defensive coordinator, I'm going up to Jerry Jones's office right now being like, you can't do this to my defense. We will not be able to get after the quarterback if he is not on this roster.
Yeah, it's a great point. And by the way, today it flipped over to August. It's August 1st for anybody keeping track. September 4th is when the Cowboys kick their season off against the Super Bowl champion winning Eagles. That's going to be here before we know it. All right, we're going to table this and get to more drama. That's in Washington as Terry McLaurin officially requested a trade. We thought this would be the lead of our show, and then Micah Parsons said, I'm going to take care of that. We're going to welcome in John Keim, our Commanders reporter. John, what more can you tell us about everything going on with Terry McLaurin and the team?
All right, Laura, there's 4 things I think that are important to know here. 1, they're not going to trade him. He came out with the trade request yesterday. They have no intention of trading him. I've heard that a number of times over the last few months. They're not going to trade him. I heard it again yesterday before he made this announcement and heard it again today. They're not going to trade him. They feel like they can contend for the Super Bowl. Losing Terry McLaurin does not help that quest. They view this as another bargaining chip for Terry McLaurin's side. A couple weeks ago, he expressed frustration at a press conference. Then he held out. Then he held in. All along, no movement, so this is the latest development. Number 2 is age. That's always been the sticking point for the Commanders. McLaurin turns 30 next month. When the extension would start, he'd be 31. They don't want to pay a 31, 32, 33-year-old a big receiver big money. They're a heavily analytics-based group. The analytics show that receivers start to decline. McLaurin, of course, would counter and say, this is only his 7th year in the NFL. He doesn't have the same wear and tear on his legs as others at his age. The third thing is DK Metcalf's deal. That's the sticking point for McLaurin. Metcalf received a $32.5 million per year deal from the Steelers. McLaurin and Metcalf, same draft class, similar production. The Commanders would counter saying that Metcalf is 2 years younger. And finally, there's precedent. The Commanders don't want to pay what they would view as an above-market deal for an older receiver. Keep in mind, next year, a couple guys will be up for contract extensions. Larry Tunsil, Frankie Louvu, possibly Marshawn Lattimore, possibly Deebo Samuel. That's why this has been a sticking point along. It's why it has taken this long and could take several more weeks to figure out.
John, it's really interesting context. Thank you so much for providing it. And Adam, I feel like a lot of people are just saying, pay Terry McLaurin. You can't operate this offense without him. Jaden Daniels needs him. But what more can you add about why this is more complicated than that?
Well, John hit on the value, and it's all about that, where Terry McLaurin believes that he has outperformed DK Metcalf, who was in his draft class, and teams always pay a premium for when they trade for a player like the Pittsburgh Steelers did, but DK Metcalf got an average of $33 million per year. The Washington Commanders believe that they really want to keep Terry McLaurin, but they have a different idea of his value. They look at other deals. Mike Evans, $24 million. Cortland Sutton, $24 million. They look at some of those deals and say, well, that's comparable in some ways too. And so there is the rub, because Terry McLaurin's been so good for so long on and off the field. He's been a model for that organization. The prices of wide receiver have risen over the last year, and that's why he believes he's worth at least what DK Metcalf has gotten from Washington. And right now, the two sides remain in a stalemate. But I will say this, Laura, it's August 1st. We have Terry McLaurin issuing a trade request from the Washington Commanders. We have Micah Parsons issuing a trade request from the Dallas Cowboys. We have Trey Hendrickson disgruntled in Cincinnati, ending his holdout this week but still not practicing. The season hasn't begun. We've just gotten to August. The NFL produces drama in ways that very, very few sports and people can.
There's just nothing quite like it. That's why it's king. All right, thanks to Adam. We got a lot more coming your way here. A live report from Eagles camp. How are the Eagles looking to avoid a Super Bowl hangover, make another run at the Lombardi? They'll tell you next. Plus a little bit more on our breaking news of the day surrounding Micah Parsons. We dive into that. It's all right here on ESPN. ESPN Fantasy Football is the #1 fantasy game. With the season right around the corner, download the ESPN Fantasy app to play or sign up now. Get your league started at espn.com/fantasyfootball. I'm going to be playing. Got to see you there. All right. For more on what the Super Bowl champs are up to, we're going to go live to Philly. You see Dan Graziano there. He continues his illustrious camp tour. Graz, some changes to the Eagles offense with the new OC taking over. What can you tell us about their philosophy now, and maybe if it changes at all heading into this season?
Yeah, Laura, I don't think it's going to change much. The Eagles aren't going to mess with a successful, good thing that they had last year in terms of the offense. It's interesting because they seem to change every year. 2 years ago, they went to the Super Bowl and lost. They lose their offensive coordinator, Shane Steichen, to the Colts. They hire Brian Johnson, promote him internally from their staff. Didn't go well. This time they lose Kellen Moore to the Saints, and they promote Kevin Patullo from the staff. But because of his experience here and the Eagles players' experience around him, the Eagles have reason to believe that this year's offensive coordinator change will go much more smoothly than it did a couple of years ago.
Kevin's did a good job. I think he's been really implemental, the past 4 or 5 years that he's been here. Being next to our OC, so really big in installing, our passing game attack. And so really it's been a flawless transition. And as we progress towards the season, we just keep better and better.
One person I talked to here said that Kevin Patullo was, quote, overdue for his chance to be an offensive coordinator in this league. He's been around a lot of great offensive minds, and he has one himself. So the Eagles, look, I mean, the offense took off last year when they figured out our offensive line can open holes, Saquon Barkley can run through them. Everything we do is going to be based off of that. Laura, I don't think that Kevin Patullo is going to change that fundamental aspect of the Eagles offense that delivered them their second Super Bowl title.
Gross, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Thanks so much. You're the best. And this afternoon, the other news going on in the NFC East. With no traction on contract talks, Micah Parsons said he wants to be traded by the Cowboys, saying, quote, yes, I wanted to be here. I did everything I could to show that I wanted to be a Cowboy and wear the star in my helmet. Unfortunately, I no longer want to be here. More on the Cowboys' pass rushers' future coming up right here on NFL Live. We're back on NFL Live. The breaking news of the day. Cowboys star pass rusher Micah Parsons has officially requested a trade. He did so in a very long statement that he put out on X, but really what you need to know is he said, quote, I no longer want to be here. He also had a whole portion of it where he talked about a time he went in to meet with Jerry Jones. He thought he was meeting about something leadership-based, and then Jerry Jones starts trying to do a deal without his agent present. There's a lot to it. Go read it yourself if you want to. But let's get our final thoughts on it. Kevin, as you've had a little bit more time to process what's going on with the Cowboys and Micah Parsons, what's coming to mind?
Jerry Jones should no longer make decisions for the Dallas Cowboys. It appears to me that everything in the organization flows through Jerry Jones wanting to be in control of everything. And there's this old quote, right, where it's amazing what can happen if nobody wants the credit. It's the opposite of that in Dallas. Nothing happens because Jerry Jones wants all the credit. He wants everything to flow through him. And it is the fact that we're saying people are hand-waving this situation with Micah Parsons by saying, oh, well, this is how it's always done. That's worse. That makes it worse, guys. He should not be doing this anymore. He should either change or stop making decisions for his team.
The whole this is the way that business is always done doesn't fly anymore. And I keep going back to what Micah Parsons said in that statement, that he was okay leaving money on the table. Who says that? Somebody who wants to be there. And even last year in December, he goes, I don't know the difference between 30 and 40 million. You could have gotten this done 6, 7, 8 months ago. He wanted to negotiate at the combine. Jerry Jones, for whatever reason, said, I'm willing to pay more to get it right. But you're not getting it right at all. You're only muddying the waters here and making it more convoluted. As Swagoo brought up earlier, this affects the team on the field. I don't want to hear about, oh, well, bygones will be bygones. You are creating bad blood and animosity from ownership to the players. He doesn't need to be the GM anymore. I don't believe he'll relinquish that title on his own, but certainly would love for somebody to get through to him and show him that this is not the way you do business.
And it'd be interesting if that change could actually be made. Courtney's brought this up a few times, Bill, but Matt Eberflus taking over as the new defensive coordinator there. You know, right now, he's trying to do this with no Micah Parsons on the field and then all of this distraction going on. There's no doubt how important Micah Parsons is to this team. How would you explain that?
With Micah Parsons on the field the last 4 years, the Cowboys have been the best defense in football by expected points added per play, which is my nerd stat of choice. I'm in honor of Mina, who's not here. They are 28th in the NFL when Micah Parsons is off the field.
Ooh.
They go from being the best defense in football to one of the worst when he is not around. I know Micah Parsons is good, but he's that good. He turns a bad defense into an elite one. That is the difference there. And it just seems so shocking to me because it's been 30 years now of the Cowboys dealing with Jerry Jones and not having success. If they were making it to the Super Bowl every year, whatever, okay, it's weird, but at least it's working. It's not working.